In this video, we're going to discuss several functions that can be used to extract records from a data set. Okay, so the first function we're going to look at is the VLOOKUP function. So here we have a small data set with student ID, their year, and also their grades. Right? What we want to do is, given an ID, we would like to write a formula to automatically extract the year of the student and also the grade of that student. Right. So let's get started. At the beginning, I would like to show you approach to, suppose you have a list of values, and instead of just copy paste one value to this cell, then what you can do is you can go to the data tab and then look for this item called data validation. Okay, just click on data validation. You bring up this menu here. So in this in this drop-down menu, okay. So in this drop-down menu called allow, let's choose list. So we're gonna allow a list, and in the source, we're going to choose this ID column. Okay, because we're choosing from one of these values. Click OK. So now, to put a value in this cell, you can just click on this arrow here and choose from this drop-down menu. Okay, after that, let's start typing formulas. So remember, we're trying to figure out what's the year and grade for this student, right? So because this is a small data, you can just see it sort of here. So to write a formula, we're going to type VLOOKUP. The first input of VLOOKUP is lookup value. So here we're looking for this ID. The second one is called table array. So that's the table we're looking in. So we're looking in this table. Here, for VLOOKUP function, whenever you select a table, VLOOKUP will automatically search in the first column of that table. Okay, you have to make sure that the column you want to search in is actually the first column of that table. Okay, that's one thing to keep in mind. The other thing to keep in mind is, even though we're just searching in this column, but the second input here for VLOOKUP has to be the entire table. Okay, so in particular, this selection has to include the value that you're trying to extract. Here, we're trying to extract the year of the students. So this table you select must include that year column at least, right? So that's something to keep in mind. The second input here for VLOOKUP function is the column index. So because we're looking for year, and year is the second column in your table, so the column index here is 2. Okay. And finally, we're choosing the lookup type, meaning we're choosing what kind of match we're looking for. Okay. In this case, we're looking for an exact match, meaning we're looking for an exact match of this record in the first column of your table. Right? So exact match, you can either type 0 or you can type false. Okay. So the last one for exact match, you can type 0 or just the word false. Okay, they're the same thing. So I'm going to type 0 here because this is easier. Hit enter. So this ID, the year is sophomore. Okay, so that makes sense. And next, I want to extract the grade of the student. So again, VLOOKUP, and the first value, we're looking for this ID inside this column, inside this table. Now, the grade is the third column of your table because we're trying to extract grade here. That's the third column. So I'm going to say column number 3. Again, exact match. Okay, looking for the exact match of this value inside the first column of your table. Exact match. Okay, so that student is a sophomore with a grade of 73. Okay, let's change this ID. Let's select a different ID. Now you can see that for this student, He's a senior and the grade is 89. Okay, so that's how VLOOKUP function works. Okay, so let's do the same thing using a different approach. First, let me copy, Control-C, Control-V. So I'm going to copy the data validation list to this cell here. I can select a different ID. So to perform the same task, another choice is to use the combination of index and match function. Okay. So what index function does is, if you type index, so you can see the first input is an array. So we can do a one-dimension index or a two-dimension index. Okay, let's try a one-dimension index first. So in a one-dimension index, this array or this table should be either one row or one column. Okay, doesn't matter. You can do both row and column. Let's do column. Okay, so my array is a column. And the second one, it says row number, because this is basically a one-dimension array, so it doesn't matter whether you call it a row number or column number. So the second input should be an integer, and you should tell index which element you're trying to extract from this array. Okay? Let's say I'm trying to extract this number here, 11009. So that's the 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the fourth element of your array here. So I'm going to type 4. Okay? So that gives me this entry. So this is a one-dimensional index application. Okay. So like I said, here I used a column. You can also use one-dimension index with a row. Okay, let's say my first input is this first row here, and let's say I want to extract this sophomore out of this row. Sophomore is the second element in your row, so that's 2. That gives you sophomore. Okay. And you can also use index function on two-dimension tables. Okay. So I can type index. Here, the array, the first input, needs to be a two-dimension table. Let's say I select this entire table here. And to pin down the element, you need to say, okay, which row or which column, right? So for example, if I'm trying to extract this number 73 out of this table, then that'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The fifth row, 1, 2, 3, and the third column. So fifth row, third column, that gives you 73. Okay, so index function basically allows you to extract an element or elements out of a table by providing the location of that element. Okay. So match function, the first input is a lookup value. So this is somewhat similar to what we saw in the VLOOKUP, right? So you need to say, what are you looking for? Let's say I'm looking for this this ID 23419. Okay, and lookup array. Where are you looking for that ID? So here you have to provide a one-dimension array. So let's say I'm choosing this column here because this ID is in this column. Okay, and also you have to provide the match type. Is that an exact? So I'll talk about other types of match, but let's do exact match. So the same thing. To specify exact match, you have to do either 0 or false. Okay, here again I'm typing 0. Okay. So this ID is the third element of this column here. Therefore, match returns 3. Okay. So you can also do match. Say again, I'm looking for this ID. But in this case, I'm looking for this ID in this row here. Okay, exact match. So in this case, because this ID is the first element of that row, so it's returning 1. So first element of this row. So you can either use match with a column, or you can use match to search for something in a row. okay, but it has to be a one-dimensional array in match. Okay, let's try to see how do we combine these two to do what we want here. So I'm going to start with index, okay, and here because I'm trying to extract something out of this year column, right? So I'm trying to figure out, display the year of the student. So I'm trying to extract something out of this year column. So I'm indexing this year column, and the number here should be, as you can see, it should be for this student, right? It should be number 3, right? But I don't want to type number 3. Instead, I want Excel to figure out what's the number here for index, right? So I'm going to use the match function to do that. So I want to match this value to this column and the exact match. So this match function will tell me that this ID is the 3rd row in this column, right? So this will return 3. And then the index function will say, okay, I want the 3rd element out of this column, which is senior. So the result should be senior. And you can also do that for grade. So I'm going to do index here because I'm trying to extract a grade of the student. So I'm going to index the grade, and which element, again, use match to figure that out. So I'm going to match this value to this ID column to figure out the row number, exact match. Okay. Index that. So for this student, it's a senior, and the grade is 78. So that's how to use the combination of index and match function to locate and display a record. In this case, you can use either VLOOKUP or index. They can achieve exactly the same goal. So the trade-off here is that VLOOKUP, the syntax is relatively short. Okay, so it's relatively straightforward. So if you could, you should use VLOOKUP because it makes things look easier. Okay, but VLOOKUP has 2 main constraints. One is that, like I said earlier, you can only search in the first column of this table. Okay, so if your search criteria is located in other columns, then VLOOKUP does not work. You basically have to change the table if you want to use VLOOKUP. Okay. The other constraint is that VLOOKUP only allows you to search based on one criteria. If you want to search based on multiple criteria, then you have to use index. Okay, so there are the 2 main constraints of VLOOKUP. Okay, one is the first column. The second is one-dimension search. Okay. So let's consider an example where VLOOKUP doesn't work without changing the structure of your data. Okay, so you have to use the index and match. Okay, so here the ID is located in the second column of your table. Right? So if you use VLOOKUP, it won't work. In this case, you would have to use index. So here, because I'm trying to extract the year of that student, so I'm indexing the year column. And then exactly which element am I trying to extract? I'm going to use match function to figure that out. So I'm matching this particular ID to the ID column, the exact match. This match function will return which element is for this student, right? So this student should be the 3rd element in this column. So here in the year column, we're also extracting the 3rd element. And here we have index. Now I'm indexing the grade column and match ID, exact match. So a sister function of VLOOKUP is HLOOKUP. So in VLOOKUP, each variable should be stored in a column. Okay, but if you have a table like this where each variable is stored in a row, then to do the same thing, you basically need to use the HLOOKUP function. So let's see how we do this. I'm going to do HLOOKUP, looking for this ID, Again, you need to specify the table, which is the entire table. And here, you need to say, okay, because we're trying to extract year, and year is the second row in this table. So here the row number of the variable you're trying to extract is number 2. Okay, an exact match. So Control C, escape, Control V. Grade. Only difference here is that grade is located in the third row, so I'm going to change this to number 3. Enter. Okay. Of course, you can also do this using index and match. Index and match doesn't really care about the orientation of your table. You can use it both for vertical tables and horizontal tables. So year. Here, the year I'm trying to extract is located in the second row. Right? So I'm indexing the second row here, and exactly which element am I trying to extract? I'm going to use match function to figure that out. So I'm matching this ID to this ID row. Okay, exact match. So that this match function will tell me which element this ID is located in. Right? So here that'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That'll be the 5th element. Right? So therefore, match will return 5, and the index will extract the 5th element out of this year row. Right? So that's a sophomore. Grade is basically the same thing. Index. Now you're indexing the grade row here. Which element? Match this to the ID row, 5th element. Close it. So the index function will return the 5th element of this row. Okay. In example 4, we have 2 tables here, right? So in the first table we have ID, student ID, year, and grade. In the second table we have something called PID. These are another type of ID for students, and also combined with the numeric ID. Okay. So what I want here is for each PID here, I want to write a formula to extract the year and grade for that student. Okay, so let me first do data validation to make this look nicer. I'm going to do this. Choose a PID. So you can see here for this PID, the ID is 20008, right? And then we can go back to this table, 2008. So the year should be sophomore and grade should be 73. Right? So, but how do we do this using formula? So to help you think about this, let's introduce a new column here called ID. And so we're going to first figure out what's the corresponding ID for this PID. Okay, so using this table. Here I can use VLOOKUP. Because the item I'm trying to search for is in the first column, so I can use VLOOKUP. Okay. Sorry, VLOOKUP, I'm looking for this item in this table. And I'm trying to extract ID, so that's the second column, exact match. Okay, that gives us the ID for this PID. Knowing the ID, we can use VLOOKUP, look for this ID. Now in this table here, we're trying to extract year, second column, exact match. Okay. So this works, right? If you want to, normally we don't want to add these extra columns if we don't have to. In this case, we don't have to keep this extra column. So what we can do is, instead of referring to this E48, I'm going to combine the calculation here. So I'm going to put the formula that generates E48, Control C, escape, and use that formula to replace this reference. Okay, so I'm going to produce this content of E48 internally in this formula. Okay, doesn't affect my result. Now I don't need this anymore, so I can do Alt H E A to delete the content here. Okay, and the next for the grade, I can just Control C, escape, Control V. So here the only thing that needs to change really is this column number for this outside VLOOKUP. Okay, because for the outside VLOOKUP, we're trying to extract the grade here. So the grade is the third column of this table. So I'm changing that to number 3. Got that. And of course, you can also use the index and match function to perform this task, okay, which is slightly more, the solution is going to look slightly longer. Okay? So I'm just going to type this up. So again, let's begin by adding this helper column here called, this helper column here called ID. Okay, so what I will do is I'll first figure out the ID based on this PID. Okay, so that's going to be index. I'm indexing this ID column here. And use match function to figure out which one I want. So I'm going to match this PID to the PID column, exact match. Okay. So that gives me the ID of this PID. And next I can do, again, index. Here I'm indexing the year because I'm trying to extract the year. And I'm going to match. So I'm looking for this ID in this ID column, exact match. Okay. So that gives me the year of the student. Again, if you want to get rid of this helper column here, what you can do is you can copy the formula, Control C, escape, and use that to replace the reference to that helper column or helper cell. Okay. Control V. Okay. So now everything is calculated in one formula. I'm going to copy and paste, Control C, escape, Control V. For this cell, I'm trying to extract grade. Grade is in column C, so it's in column C here. Okay, that's the only thing I need to change. And because everything is calculated inside these two cells, so I don't need this anymore, you can do Alt H E A to get rid of that. Okay. So that's two approaches. You can see this one, like I said, is going to be a little longer. But if you figure this out step by step, it shouldn't be too hard to understand. The other thing we can do using the VLOOKUP function is to merge the two tables. Okay. So basically, that's what we have already done here with some minor change. Let's say I want to merge these two tables into one table, okay? But I only wish to keep 3 columns. Okay. I want to keep PID, year, and grade. Okay. Let's see how we do that. So first, I can copy the content of the PID column into this new table here, and then I just need to figure out what's the year and grade for that PID, which is what we just did. Right? So just to save some time, I'm just going to copy Control C, escape, Control V. Okay. We need to make some changes to this formula, just minor changes. Okay. One is that in this formula here, right, we copied from here, it's looking for this PID in this table. So here is A48. A48 is this one. Now we're looking for this PID in this table. So that should be changed to A53. Okay. So really, that's the only thing we need to change to make this formula work. Right? But if you want to drag your formula down to these other rows, you want to make sure that you fixed everything up here. Because otherwise, when you drag your formula down, all these tables will start to shift down. That's not what you're looking for. Okay, so I'm going to fix this table F4 and this table F4. I'm going to fix these two tables, which will allow me to drag my formula later. Okay. I'm going to copy what I have here, Control C, escape, Control V. So now the only difference is that in this outside VLOOKUP, right, we're trying to extract grade. Grade is in the third row of this table. So I'm going to type number 3. Otherwise, these two are the same. Okay, now I'm ready to drag my formula down. Okay, so now we have a new table that combines 2 columns from this table and 1 column from this table. Okay, the bridge is this ID column, right? So we use the ID column to link 2 tables, and this is the result. Okay. Okay, in this new example, we're going to consider a case where we have 2 criteria. We use 2 criteria to extract records. Right? So we have, let's assume this is a sales record for different years in different cities. Right? So what I want to do is, for each combination of city and year, I would like to write a formula to extract the corresponding sale number. Okay, let's see how we do that. Again, you can use the data validation to generate a city list and a year list. And for that pair of city and year, I can do, like I said, in this case, you cannot really do a VLOOKUP because you have 2 criteria to consider, right? So I need to use the index function. So I'm indexing. This is going to be a 2-dimension index. Okay, I'm indexing this 2-dimension table here. So what's the row number? The row number depends on the year I have here. So I'm going to match my year here with the list of years. Okay, exact match. So this match function, as you can see, will return 2, right? Because this is the second item in this list. Okay. And what's my column number here? The column number should be, in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4 should be 4 because the city is Seattle, right? So I'm going to match Seattle to my city list. That'll give me the sales number for this particular combination. Seattle in 2014, 567. Okay. Another useful trick to know for this kind of 2-dimension index is that if you want one element out of a 2-dimension table, then you have to provide both the row number and the column number, right? So use 2 matches to provide the row number and the column number to pin down a single number in this 2-dimension table. Okay. But in case you want to extract, for example, the entire column of this table, right? For example, if copy this to here, if I want to extract the sales in Seattle from all these 4 years altogether, then you don't have to actually write a formula for each cell separately. What you can do is you can do this using array formula. Okay, let's see how we do that. So to extract all the records, this column, then we can do, first of all, select the column here, type index. Again, we're indexing this because we're extracting data from this column, this table. So we're indexing this table, the row number. So because we want every row out of this table, so we don't have to specify a row number. We're going to skip the row number. The column number, again, the column number depends on matching your city name to this list of cities. So that's going to tell you that your the city you're looking for is the fourth element in this list. Right? So that's going to return number 4, which is the column number. Remember, this is an array formula because it produces results in multiple cells altogether. So we're going to do Control-Shift-Enter. Okay. So that gives us the result for this entire column. Okay. You can also try to extract the number from Chicago. And of course, you can also do the same thing if you want to extract an entire row here. Right? So I'm going to do that quickly. For example, suppose I'm trying to extract, so I'm going to copy the year list here. Say I'm trying to extract all the sales in 2014 for every city here, right? Okay, what I can do is I can do this. I'm going to specify the row number, match this to okay, but I'm going to skip the column number because I want every column. Control-Shift-Enter. Okay, so that gives us this entire row. Okay, so that's a two-way search using the index and match function. Okay, next, let's consider a three-way search. Right? In other words, we have 3 criteria to consider. First, we have this table where you have city name, year, and also we further break down sales into the sales from weekdays and from weekends. Okay, so now for each city and year, you have 2 sales number. So I'm going to do data validation here. So one thing you notice here is that the data validation will not eliminate repeated records. Okay? So here we have, actually the list should be 2013, 14, and 15, but because we have 2 entries of each year, so the data validation will include everything. Right? So the data validation does not recognize duplicated records. But for our purpose, that's okay. You can select either one of those years, so that's fine. And the date type, do list. So for date type, because we only have 2 choices, you don't have to select the whole thing. Otherwise, you have 3 copies of everything. So I just need to select any 2. That's fine. Okay. And click OK. And now I have 2 choices here. City choose city list. Click OK. All right, so we have our 3 criteria. And in this case, to use the index function, what we need to do is to reduce this 3-dimension search to a 2-dimension search. Right? The way we do that is we're going to use this AND operator to combine column A and column B. So I'm going to do A2 and B2. Sorry, it should be 3. A3 and B3. Okay. So now the content of these 2 columns are merged into one cell. Okay. You can drag your formula, and that's fine. Okay. And then we have a two-dimension search. So as in the previous example, so I'm going to index this table here, and the row number depends on, basically we need to match the combination of these two cells to this new column here. So we're going to combine these two and compare them with this column and figure out which element we're trying to extract. So A11, B11, right? So we're combining these two cells, and the lookup array is this one right here, exact match. And the column match is, as usual, the CT matched to CT, the exact match. So for 2014, we can sell in LA 4521. Okay, that's what we got. But this solution will depend on this extra column, so you have to keep this column here. Right? If you don't want to keep this column here, what we could do is to use the array formula. Right? So the other way to produce this column is to say select the whole column, type A3 to A8 and B3 to B8. Okay, Control Shift Enter, and that's another way. This is going to be an array formula. Right? So we can plug this array formula into this reference here, right? So instead of producing this column and refer to this column like this, we can just produce this array inside your formula. So that's going to be A3, A8, and B3 to B8. Okay, so that's exactly what we have here. So that this formula replaces this reference, okay, because they're the same thing. Control Shift Enter. Remember, it has to be Control Shift Enter because you have an array formula inside your formulas, right? Control Shift Enter. And we'll leave a more difficult situation in a separate video. Okay, so that's it for this video.